I just want to provide you with some of the popular definitions of grey literature. Of course, I'm not going to read them to you because that will be not interesting, because you can read it there. But just to make it a summary, we call grey literature the kind of a literature that are not published by professional publishers. And that's why finding them, because they are not published by professional publishers, they have not been distributed widely and professionally. So finding them is not sometimes easy. And also, there is no certain company, institute, or organization to gather these literature in one place so that we could search them. It means they are not controlled. They are freely available everywhere. So, as a summary, to make it more systematic, is grey literature are not published by a commercial or professional publisher, not distributed widely, and they are not controlled, indexed, or organized like we have journal papers that has been indexed in databases. So you know that if you are looking for a medical topic, you go to PubMed, do a search, and you are happy that you searched it, almost the main database of medical literature. What about grey literature? We don't have such database. Why do we call them grey? Because they are grey, and the reason that we call them grey is that, well, just what I'm thinking right now, what happens in my mind, in your mind, we cannot see it. It is dark, and it is invisible to us. What you are thinking, what is your idea, and your feelings, these are invisible. No one can see it, so these are dark. And when you write it down and publish it in a journal, it is so visible. Everyone could find it, everyone could read it, so you make it visible as light. But what stands between these two, we call them grey. So it is not white or black, it is grey, because they are not as invisible as your thinking, what happens in your mind, and they are not as visible as light, your publications. Why does it matter? Why it is important to take care of grey literature? Why do we care about it? Why do we hold a webinar about it? Why do we encourage people to search for it? The reason is that there are many good quality literature out there that they are not available in any other format. So you couldn't find them as a book. You could not find them as journal paper. That's why the only way to access them is to find the original format. For example, your dissertation. You may work 2 years, 3 years, 4 years on your dissertation, on your thesis, and at the end you don't publish it. So 4 years of effort, 4 years of research, it stands in the library. So you see that this is very valuable material. They have high quality. Most of the time the grey literature have high quality, and usually they are free. Just imagine many of the documents that are available online and we could access by simple search in a search engine. We could find them, we could use them, but we don't do that because we think that it is hard to use just a search engine. We prefer to go to PubMed and do our search. We prefer to do it systematic and easy. Just say that I searched in PubMed. But when you are facing the truth that there are many high-quality literature that are not in PubMed, you will be confused at what to do with them. And the thing is that when you are dealing with grey literature, most of the time they are more detailed than journal papers. You work on a dissertation, you your dissertation is 100 pages, 200 pages, but you publish a paper in a journal which is 5 pages, 10 pages. So how about all those details that you spend your time, your energy, your expertise and knowledge to write a dissertation, 200 pages, but you publish 5, 6, 7 pages in a journal? All these details will be lost. But if someone could access your dissertation, then they have all the details. And the other thing is that gray literature are quickly available. When you finish your dissertation, it is done. You could put it in university website, you could put it online, and it is immediately there. People could access it. But when you want to publish a journal paper, you have to write it, edit it several times, then check the journal's website, check the instruction for authors, submit the paper, it will go to peer review, it will take 6 months, 11 months, 12 months, a year, 2 years, until they accept your paper and publish it. So it gets, since you finish your research until you publish it as a journal paper, it may take 6 months, 1 year, sometimes 2 years. But it is not happening for gray literature. But what is the problem with gray literature? Why they are not as famous as journal papers? Firstly, there is no single database in the world as famous as like PubMed. When you say that I'm looking for papers, say that go and search PubMed. And when someone says I'm looking for gray literature, we don't know what to say because there is no comprehensive database, one-stop shop, that you go there and do your search and say that I did search gray literature and finished. The other thing is that there is no control on distribution, on indexing of this literature. So you find a good PDF online, it is 100 pages. So you don't know what is the title. You look there, there is something bold, but there is something under it. So you are not sure if this is the title. Who are the authors? Because sometimes they are organizations. For example, there is a research that WHO pays for it, and someone from a Chinese university or American university is doing this research, and they put the university name there. So who is the publisher? Is the university? Is the WHO? We don't know, because in PubMed you know who is the author. What is the title of the paper? What is the journal name? But when you are facing a gray literature, you don't know how to cite it, how to reference it. You ask that, well, where is the author? Where is the title? Where is the publisher? What is the date of publication? Because sometimes it is hard to find. There is no organization in the world that seriously comes and state that I have gathered all of the gray literature, or I'm trying to gather all of the literature. So we don't have any good source that refer you to. And the other thing is that we don't know how much gray literature exists out there. The other issue is with accessibility. Some of gray literature are freely available online because they have been funded by government, and so after finishing the research, they put it online for everyone, and every single person could download it. Sometimes they are private. For example, industry, for example, drug companies, they are doing research with their own money. So it is my money, and I did the research for myself. I don't want to share it with everyone, so I keep it with me. But there is a clue out there. I know that they've done a research. They have not published it for us. It is not online for me, but they've done it. So sometimes it is not easy to access them. The other thing is that sometimes they are copyrighted and you have to pay for them. Also, most of the time they are free, but sometimes they are restricted. They give it to you, but they say that you could use it just 3 days, just 1 week, and then you cannot open this PDF file. So sometimes they are restricted. And the other thing is that a journal paper, we know that there is a paper published in Lancet journal, we could access it almost all the time. almost everywhere. But is it the same about annual report of family spend that the government publish online? In 2012, they published annual report of what is the cost of living in this city. But in 2013, they deleted from their website and put the new report. So the other thing is that we may not access them all the time in everywhere. So we should be careful of the reports that are coming and going away, because internet is very active and it changes all the time. The other issue with grey literature is that we don't know most of the time if they have been peer-reviewed or not. And we are not sure about their quality. We need to assess them before using them, if they are reliable or not. The other thing is that they are not as beautiful as journal papers. You look at journal papers, they have been laid out, people work on, put colors on it, make it beautiful for readers. Grey literature might not be as beautiful as journal papers, but they might be as important as them. So these are the famous and most useful types of grey literature. Conference abstracts, the abstracts that we present in the conferences, usually they don't get published or indexed in journals. Sometimes there is abstract book, and we probably could find if there is a recent conference, but if it is a conference 10 years ago, we cannot find it easily. Dissertations and theses, just imagine how many students in the world are doing dissertation and thesis, and most of them do not publish it as a paper, so we are not aware of them. Reports that we publish from our research, the proposal that you present as your research proposal when you are studying. When you are doing any research, we write proposal or protocol, progress report, final report, annual report. Where are they? When we are doing clinical trials, we register it as a protocol somewhere, but they are not in journals, they are not in PubMed, they are not in databases. Also the standards, ISO standards, technical specification of softwares, of devices, newsletters in the organizations, patents of inventions, data, supplementary data of your research. We present in our paper, we present standard deviation, mean, but not the data for every single patient. Where is this data? And lecture presentations are not like this slide that you are seeing right now. If we don't distribute it properly, it is grey literature. And there are many other types. So the best places, I'm trying to introduce you the best places that you look for grey literature, because there are many places, but it depends on your time, how much time you have for your research. The most famous place is Open Grey, which is a resource focused on European literature. So you will find many literature in non-English language, and usually they are in European languages. British Library has documented a very good collection of grey literature after World War II. And this is invaluable collection, but it is not free. So it's a very good source to do search and find them and order them if you want. There is another source which is available again and not free from Ovid. While Open Grey is free, British Library is not free, and Healthcare Management Information Consortium is not free, and National Technical Information Service, which is from United States, it might allow you to do the search, but for ordering the documents you will need to pay. There are other resources that are focused on certain topics like PsychExtra, which is a good source of grey literature in psychology. So recently there is a good movement in every single organization and university. They are trying to put a database for their own university online to put their own literature, theses, dissertations, conference abstracts on it. And they call it a repository, which is kind of a database. Open DOAR, or the Directory of Open Access Repositories, is the list of organizational databases. So University of Nottingham has a database for itself and asks people to put their own publications, their documents, conference abstracts, their posters, their dissertations in it. So you could find hundreds and thousands of universities who have such kind of registers or repositories or databases, and here is the list of these universities. Open DOAR. It is a very useful source. But many of the audiences are interested in dissertations and theses. They want to know that the students in other countries, what they are working on, what is their dissertation, and can I get any idea reading their dissertation and thesis? That's why I collected the best available sources of dissertations here in this slide for you. The biggest collection of dissertations belongs to ProQuest. You could find a way to search it freely, but you cannot download dissertations freely. It is not free, and it is not cheap, so you have to pay for it, and usually the students get dissertations when their university is subscribed to this source. It is the most useful source if you are looking for a dissertation. British Library has a service called ETHOS, Electronic Thesis, which is free for search, but again, for getting the full text is not free. But the other source, happily, is free, and you could download dissertations which are free, full text of a dissertation. Open Access Theses and Dissertations database is a very, very good source of information for you. Also, European e-thesis portal, and CINAHL is a database which indexes journals, but at the same time it indexes nursing dissertations too. That's why if you are looking for a nursing dissertation or thesis, you could find here. There are other sources, some of them focus on countries like UK, Germany, and there are international, some of them are focused on just a certain country. But ProQuest, DART, and NDLTD are international sources. So if you are looking to see what people around the world are working on in their PhD, in their master degree, and get idea from them, it's the best, these sources are the best sources to look at. So there are many conferences happening all around the world. Thousands and millions of people are participating in these conferences, and hundreds and thousands of abstracts are presented in these conferences. Where are they? This is what effort that we put on. We travel to conference, we present it, but where is this abstract? So the best source for getting the abstract is two of the databases that you could search through Web of Science, which is not free, unfortunately. So in Web of Science, there is Conference Proceedings Citation Index for Science, which includes science, technology, engineering, and medicine, and Conference Proceedings Citation Index for Social Science and Humanity, which includes philosophy, social sciences, sociology, psychology. So if there are conferences that are internationally well-known and reliable, Web of Science index their abstract, which is very good. But it is from 1990 onward, so if you are looking for very old conferences, it's not going to work. Then you have to get back to British Library and pay for it a lot. Embase is a good source because it gives you the option to limit your search to journals or just conference abstracts. That is amazing, because if you've done the search before for journal papers, you don't have to search again for them. You could limit your search just for conference papers. Biosys is another database that provides the conference abstracts for you. It is searchable through Web of Knowledge, so it is not free again. And ZTOG is another source for searching conference proceedings or abstracts. If you are from the field of clinical sciences, clinical trials are very important for us. They are kind of a research that we try a drug or any kind of intervention on human being. So these are very valuable sources of information. Before starting clinical trial, most of the time, the companies, the researchers, the universities submit a proposal of it in an online database. And here you can see in the first three, there are three main sources of clinical trial protocols. So you could know that what are the clinical trials that are running all around the world, searching these three sources. Some of them has been finished. They have not published the data yet. Some of them are ongoing. Some of them has been stopped early. And some of them are going to be started later. So you could find a great source of clinical trial information here. You could find email address of researchers. So if they have been finished their research, they report it here. They say that we finished the research, but it is not published. But you need to know about the data, so you can email them and ask them, I need your data. The last source, Central, is the greatest and biggest database of randomized clinical trials in the world. And you could search it through the Cochrane Library. So these four sources are kind of the best available sources for clinical trials that every clinician and researcher in medical sciences should know about. But there is a choice in hand. So many people prefer to search Google Scholar. It is for shallow searches, not deep searches. If you want to just get general idea that what exists out there, Google Scholar as a search engine is okay to use, but it is not a perfect source. It is for people who don't have time, they don't want to spend more time on searching, and they just want to have a look to see what exists. Also, the limitations for Google Scholar is that it is a search engine. It means that the search result from today to tomorrow might be changed because it is getting updated almost every hour, and the search result might be different during the time, so you couldn't make it a reproducible search. Another thing is that you could just see the first 1,000 results of search in Google Scholar. So if you get more results, you cannot see them. But it is still a useful source of information. So, why I am talking this much, why you are here to listen to this webinar, and what we are going to do with this information. If you are a researcher, I have a motto always use. I say search before research. So you have to do the search. If you are a researcher, before starting your research, you have to do search. During your research, you have to do search. All the time you are searching. So to do a literature review, any kind of review, if you are doing a literature review to write proposal, to write your final report, you are doing the search. If you have no idea what to focus on and what exists out there, you do scoping review to see what exists. And you may do systematic review. All the time we are doing search. And grey literature as a valuable source of information are something that we need to search for, because most of the time they are hidden, they are with high quality, they are freely available, and they provide great valuable information that we miss because we are not aware of these sources. If you are going to do a systematic review, to build high quality evidence, grey literature come very, very handy, because the research shows that if you search for grey literature, you are kind of preventing publication bias. The research shows that the journals love to publish the researches that show effect of intervention. So if there are 10 studies that has been done on one drug, 9 of them show that this drug has no effect, no good effect, and 1 of them shows that it has good effect. The journal love to publish the paper that shows good effect or positive effect. How about the other researches? This is publication bias. So where do we find them? We go and search grey literature to find whole body of evidence, to see what is published, what is unpublished, what are the positive results, what are the negative results, to put them together. And also, the time that we are spending on search might be slightly different, because the recent research by Saleh in Pittsburgh University showed that if you are going to search grey literature, you have to spend 85 more minutes on searching, which is, I think, worth it. So, especially in the topics that you couldn't find literature, grey literature will be very handy, because sometimes people present an abstract, but they don't go for publication. So you may at least find conference abstracts or reports online which are useful. When you want to do a search, it is good to know that you have something in your hand. List the resources that you love to search, you like to search, and then ask people, is there anything that I could search? If you are going to search for migraine, would you like to look at International Society of Migraine to see if there is something there? List the sources, search them, and cite them. Use them as proper as possible, and put reference for them. Well, we are going to finish this webinar, but if you are doing a search, a grey literature search, it is very important. This is probably the most important slide of this presentation. It is very important that you document it properly. Just imagine you go to your professor or the company that found you or the research funder that funds you, and you say that I did the search. So what will they ask you? Where did you search? Well, I cannot remember. I don't know where did I search, because I have not documented it. When did you search? I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, maybe 2 years ago. What is the date of search? We should document this. And what keywords did you search? I cannot remember, because I forgot to write them down. And how many results did you find? We don't know. And who did the search? Well, there was a guy in the library, I don't know, I cannot remember. So you see that search is part of your research method. And if you do not document it, it will not be reproducible. And the research which is not reproducible is not reliable. It means you have not done a search. If you don't document it in a way that a person after you, a year after you did your search, comes and says that I want to repeat your search, he or she should be able to repeat exactly what you did. This calls documentation. So here is some resources that you will have access to these slides. So these are good websites to visit. And if you are very interested in topic of grey literature, I recommend these sources, because these are, I think, the best sources that everyone should look at it about grey literature, especially the last one. It is a very useful tool developed by Canadians. And it is a list of, it is kind of a Word document with a list of the sources that you could search and document your search in it. And thank you for your attention. Oh, I think it is the time that people question me.
Thank you, Farhad, for the wonderful lecture. Give us a comprehensive view of grey literature. So I've sent our message to everybody, asking them to submit their questions.
Okay.
And I think we have the first question. Let me just read it out to you. So the first question comes from Dr. Jin. Or perhaps I'll read it out in Chinese first for the other audience to hear before I translate it into English. 大家好，大家如果对今天的讲座或者是检索有任何的问题，请在这里以 text 的方式提交上来，我会给大家读出来。那么第一个问题来自于天津一附院的金雄杰医生，他的问题是：这里的灰色文献是否可以理解为包含实验经过的、尚未发表的、未被公开和发表过结果的部分过程的文献？那我会把这个问题提交给老师。So the first question is what is exactly meant by grey literature? So for example, those unfinished studies, therefore unpublished studies, are these grey literature?
Yes, if they are not published, they are grey literature. And by publication, we mean publication by professional commercial publishers. For example, nowadays, whatever you put online, people say that I published it online on my own website. We call that publication too. But here, when we say publish, we mean publication by professional publishers and commercial publishers. If they are not published by any publisher who is commercial and professional, it is grey literature.
Thank you， 非常感谢。金医生，如果你对刚才的回答还有其他的问题的话，可以在这里继续提交。那么第二个问题来自于刘新志医生，不好意思，他说有没有灰色文献的检索策略 ？So the second question for Hard is there a search strategy for grey literature?
Well, the search strategy is the search keywords and the order that you use to put them together, and it is different from database to database. Since we don't have any single database for grey literature, we cannot say that there is a search strategy for grey literature. But wherever you are searching, for example, you are searching for dissertations, so you go to ProQuest and select the dissertation database, and then you put the keywords that you like. For example, if you are working on epilepsy and the treatment for epilepsy by carbamazepine, so your keywords are carbamazepine and epilepsy. So you put them together, and that will be your search strategy. It is different from database to database, and you have to develop separate search strategy for each database. There is no single search strategy for whole grey literature in the world.
Thank you, that's wonderful. 第三个问题来自刘中原医生，他的问题是：老师，你们遇到过因为灰色文献而改变了系统评价结果的情况吗？ So the next question from Hard is it possible that the inclusion of grey literature will change the conclusion of the review? And were you ever in a situation, or have you ever been involved in a review, the conclusion of which is changed because of the inclusion of grey literature?
Well, yes, it is possible that inclusion of grey literature changed the conclusion of a review. I have not been involved in such researches, but there are examples of such researches online. If you search for them in PubMed, you could find definitely researches that by involving grey literature. The main one is Tamiflu. It recently made a great discussion in all of the newspapers, all of the journals in United Kingdom, because people were, even government bought it. They said that Tamiflu is effective based on the published research. But then unpublished research came out and showed that, there was something wrong. And now we know that it is not effective because of those unpublished data and grey literature that was somewhere hidden by drug companies.
That's great. That's a wonderful example. 所以这个灰色文献的纳入啊，的确是在一些情况下可以改变研究的结果，改变系统评价的结果的，不是研究的结果。那么下一个问题来自于天津医附院的金医生，他说，因为刚开始接触系统评价，所以阅读量有限，受限于此，希望能明确一下灰色文献的引用格式或方法，以及之前所提到的检索过程的补全，包括地点、时间、执行人、撰写者等等，这些应该体现在哪里？So Farhad, the next question is from Dr. Jin. Could you say a bit more about the reference format for grey literature? For example, those unpublished ones. So that's the first part of the question. The second part is, you mentioned earlier that you need to record the time, location, and the person who carried out the search. Now, where do you report this information in a review?
Okay, that's two questions really. So for citing them, it depends on what do you have in your hand. Is it a dissertation? If it is a dissertation, you need the student who did this dissertation as the author, the title of dissertation. The publisher will be the university, and the year that has been reported in dissertation will be the year. So it is simple for dissertation. For the sources that are not clear, for example, you find the guideline or documents from China Ministry of Health. So you look at it and you check that who has done this. The person who has done this is the author. So there is something in the first pages that we could find as the title, and then the closest date that we could find either in the PDF or in the website we use as the date of publication. And then there is the publisher. So if it is from Ministry of Health, if it is from a university, there will be the university or the name of a ministry or organization there that you can use it as the publisher. And please consider that sometimes one grey literature might have more than one publisher. So it might be supported by a university, by WHO, by Ministry of Health, but has done by a university and put on university website. So sometimes it is possible. For you, what is important for referencing grey literature is that you provide the information so that if someone after you come and read your reference could find it. So for finding this grey literature, they need to know the author, title, date, and probably publisher. So as long as you provide enough information that people could find it, and if there is URL so that you link it, it is brilliant if you could put the URL too. So just provide enough information so that people could refer to it. That's why we call it reference. So for the second question, what was the second question? I forgot, sorry.
The second question is, earlier you mentioned that when you do the search, you should document the time and place and person who did the search. Now, where do you report that in the review?
Yeah. Okay, that's why we, I mean, this is slide, I forgot, okay. So, if you are doing a review, just a traditional review, you do not have to do that. If you are doing a traditional review, no one will ask you to report your search. But if you document it and keep it, if someone come to you and question your review, you could say that, for example, someone may come to you and say that you have missed 2 good studies in your review. Then you could say that this is our search, and based on this search we found this. So it is okay. For traditional review, you will not require to document it inside your review. But as an appendix, this will show the reliability and the effort that you have put for doing this review. if you are doing systematic review, then you have to report almost all of this, because in systematic review, there is a method section in the systematic review, or even in scoping review, there is a method section, and whatever you do for search methods is part of your research methods, so you report it in method section of your review. For traditional reviews, I say it is not mandatory, it is optional to report it as a search method. No one will question your work if you put that I did this search to get the literature to write this review. But usually it is great if you put it as an appendix in traditional review and as methods in systematic review or scoping review.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Farhad. That's a very comprehensive answer. 金医生，刚才这个答案呢比较长，如果你没有特别听清楚的话，回头我们会把这个视频放到公司的网站上，你可以在那里继续收听。The next question, Farhad. 下一个问题来自于河南新乡的张英丽医生，他的问题是：如果灰色文献没有经过同行评议、方法学描述不详细等问题时，我们怎样对他们的质量进行评估？ So the next question is, Grey literature, often they are unpublished, which means they are not peer-reviewed. If the methodology section of the paper is unclear, then how do we know the result is reliable? How do we assess the quality of the research?
Very good question. Oh, I love this question. It is something that it is not just your question. Actually, this is I think about 6 months ago we were in a conference and this was a great discussion for 1 hour on this question. But you don't have 1 hour, I know. What I summarize is that if they are kind of a literature that you know they have been peer-reviewed, all of dissertations and theses passes the peer review process, and they checked and checked and checked a lot by experts, so you could rely on some of them. If you find a good PDF online, which is on governmental websites or non-governmental organizations who are non-profit, so they don't get money for what they are doing, they don't get money for publishing it. If it is for government, it might be very hard to question it because the government uses it to make policies, to do intervention on a nation, on people. So they have to be very careful of what they are doing. So it doesn't mean that you could trust whatever you find as grey literature. So you, as a researcher who can think critically, sit on your table and start reading it critically to see that does it make a sense. And there are many checklists online for critical appraisal of literature based on their study design. You could use them to critically appraise this literature. But at the end, when you are using them, you always put a question mark and says that I used 5 studies to come to this conclusion. 3 of these studies were from peer-reviewed journals. Also, the peer review does not necessarily show the validation of results. So it doesn't mean that peer review is bad or good. It does not guarantee that if a publication is peer-reviewed, so the results are 100% correct. That's why if they are peer-reviewed, if they are not peer-reviewed, at the end you will read them critically, and that will be your judgment to see if their quality is okay to use the results or not. And for doing so, you could use some of the online critical appraisal checklist called CASP. So if you search critical appraisal checklist, you will find them in the internet and use them for personal thing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think it's about time. It's been about 45 minutes. I think we'll probably pack it up here. I'll just translate to the audience before I get back to you. And 我们收到的问题呢，目前就这些。今天的讲座我们会录屏之后放到公司的网站上，所以如果大家需要再听一遍的话，可以在那里重新温习。然后我们会把这个上传好了以后的视频链接发给大家。非常感谢大家今天抽出时间来参与今天的会议。那我们这个到此结束，希望大家继续关注公司的官方微信，然后来继续参与以后的网络培训。非常感谢。Thank you Farhad for today. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you
that's
for your attention
wonderful.
and organization. Thank you.
Okay, goodbye everyone.
Bye.